I rather imagine that if you didn't enjoy being bombarded, you wouldn't enjoy so much sitting in that chair. And I note the dilemmas you face mean that on occasion you will sometimes have to please some and not others, but it is becoming remarkable how often you please one lot and not the other lot. Can I just alert you and the House, Mr. Speaker, to the fact that my committee will be holding a hearing on the role of the Speaker, to be said, somewhat in the light of the experience of recent months.
Let me say to the honourable gentleman, I haven't got off the top of my head a count of the number of times that I have granted in the past urgent questions and, in some cases, though they were less fashionable at the time, emergency debates to people of what was then called a Eurosceptic disposition and would now be called a Brexiteer disposition. And the honourable gentleman was one of them. And when I was granting the honourable gentleman and some of his honourable and right honourable friends the opportunity to challenge, to question, to probe, to scrutinise, in some cases to expose what they thought were the errors of omission or commission of the government of the day, I don't recall the honourable gentleman complaining that I was giving him too many opportunities to make his point, and it wasn't a fair use of the House's time, and it was very unfair on his party, and it was a violation of the rights of his government. Now, it may be that sotto voce he was somehow making this point, but if so, I didn't hear it. He's grumbling now because he doesn't like the judgment. But the judgment I've made is an honourable and fair one, and I'm afraid if the honourable gentleman doesn't like it, there's not much I can do about that.
But I am one of the members who has formally recorded my anxiety about your partiality in the chair, and I think the right way to do that is to do it formally. But having done that, like my honourable friend for New Forest West, and having noted the narrow terms in which you gave your ruling today, I think those terms are reasonable in you coming to your judgment. However, is a sufficient change of circumstances us knowing what the response to the letter imposed upon the government by this House to request an extension, then for you to reconsider the conclusions you came to today?
Well, as the honourable gentleman will know, repetition is not a novel phenomenon in the House of Commons, including when perpetrated by me. I have made the point often, and forgive me, but I make it again, that I tend to subscribe to the dictum of the late Lord Whitelaw in these matters. He famously used to say, personally, I think it is better to cross bridges only when I come to them. It's a hypothetical question. I would have to reflect on it and make a judgment in the circumstances of the time. I don't want to fall out with the honourable gentleman, and I appreciate his courteous opening remarks. He won't be surprised to know, though I absolutely defend his right to his opinion, that I don't accept his characterisation of my speakership.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In citing your ruling just now, you spoke of the importance of precedent and convention. And yet earlier on this year, when you allowed a motion that everyone thought was unamendable to be amended, you said, sir, I'm not in the business of invoking precedent, nor am I under any obligation to do so. If we were guided only by precedent, nothing would ever change. Yeah. Can you understand, sir, in the light of your comments, why some people perceive, perhaps incorrectly, that the only consistency one can find in your rulings is that they always seem to favour one side of the argument and never the government, who are trying their best to carry out the mandate given to them by the British people in 2016.
Just because we're not guided only by precedent doesn't mean that we're not guided at all by precedent. What one has to do is to make a balanced judgment about what best serves the interests of the House. And all I would say to the honourable gentleman is that as recently as Saturday, at the insistence of the government, and I think with the support of the House met on Saturday to deliberate on this very matter.
So could I have maybe some clarification from the Speaker, or maybe in writing tomorrow, that when amendments come forward over the next few days or the next few weeks, only amendments that are pertinent to securing the deal in relation to the essence of that deal, rather than revoking Article 50 or have a second referendum, will be the ones that will be taken, because it is all about securing the deal.
To the right honourable lady is twofold. First of all, it's not for the chair to interpret the Act. People will make their own assessment of that. That doesn't fall to me. Secondly, if the right honourable lady wishes to engage with me on that matter in correspondence, I'm not promising to come back to her tomorrow. I will study any letter from her and respond in as timely a way as I can.
However unfashionable it might be, Mr. Speaker, I believe you're quite right. And by the same token, it's quite wrong to expect the voters to have to answer the same question a second time.